Greetings, Your Majesty. I am War Canvas, your loyal advisor, Xinbai. In your opinion, what was the largest battle in medieval Europe? Which was it? How many people fought? You are about to wage your first war since taking the throne. I have brought you intelligence regarding the scale of battles in this era. If this proves useful, please show your approval and grant me 2 gold coins of conquest and victory. In any war, regardless of time or place, army size is crucial intelligence. It not only helps you gauge the strength of both sides, but is also a key factor in calculating the cost of war. You must understand the relationship between a war and a battle. A war is the use of violence between different powers to achieve certain political, economic, or territorial goals through armed conflict. Examples include the 100 Years' War, the Crusades, the War of the Burgundian Succession, and the Wars of the Roses. A battle, on the other hand, is fought based on strategic needs, within a specific area and time frame, and is the sum of a series of engagements. For example, the Battle of Agincourt in the 100 Years' War, or the Battle of Arsuf during the Third Crusade. A battle is a part of a war. A single war is often comprised of many battles, large and small. Generally, the largest battles of the Middle Ages occurred between major powers, or in large-scale wars between alliances. In these battles, the combined size of the armies was usually 20,000 to 30,000 men or more. The upper limit was around 50,000 to 100,000. Smaller battles were typically conflicts between minor kingdoms or great feudal lords, or secondary engagements in a larger war. The total forces in such battles ranged from a few thousand to 10,000. In the 100 Years' War, there were many small to medium battles with over 5,000 combatants. Even smaller were conflicts between minor feudal lords, or when a monarch or great lord launched punitive attacks on lesser lords. The total forces in these engagements ranged from a few hundred to over 1,000 men. In terms of type, medieval battles were much like those from other pre-gunpowder eras and regions. They can be divided into pitched battles, skirmishes, encounter battles, sieges, defensive battles, and naval battles. Different types of battles naturally involved different army sizes. Of these, pitched battles were by far the largest. In my experience, the scale of battles you will encounter in this era will have an upper limit of around 100,000 men. First, how many people do you think participated in the largest battle of the Middle Ages? But please be aware, due to primitive accounting methods, discrepancies in records, and the questionable reliability of historical documents, the numbers we have for medieval battles, including those from other regions in similar eras, are not entirely accurate. They should serve only as a rough estimate. Many believe that during the age of knightly warfare, the largest battle in Western Europe was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth against the Teutonic Knights at the Battle of Tannenberg. The battle took place on July 15, 1410. Both sides began assembling their armies in May. By the middle of the month, the King of Poland had over 30,000 cavalry and infantry under his command. This included 18,000 Polish knights and squires, several thousand infantry, mercenaries from Bohemia and Moravia, cavalry from Lithuania, Rus, and the Tatars, a strong Moldavian contingent, and some Samogitians. The Teutonic Orders Grand Master recruited 10,000 men in Prussia, with additional pilgrims and mercenaries. His forces totaled over 20,000. This included 2 prominent nobles and 200 knights sent by Sigismund, as well as many veteran warriors recruited from Bohemia. According to widely accepted estimates, on the day of the battle, the Polish-Lithuanian forces numbered around 39,000. This included 22,000 Polish knights and heavy cavalry, and 17,000 infantry. The Teutonic Order fielded 27,000 men. This included over 10,000 knights and heavy cavalry. The rest were spearmen, crossbowmen, English mercenary, longbowmen, handgunners, and other units. The total forces for both sides was around 66,000. This figure comes from the Polish historian Stefan Kaczewski's theory. Of course, different scholars have varying opinions. on the exact numbers for this battle. From this table, you can see the data varies. The 15th century Polish chronicler, Jan Długosz, counted the number of cavalry banners for each side: 51 for the Teutonic Order, 50 for the Poles, and 40 for the Lithuanians. However, the number of cavalry under each banner is unclear and likely varied. Based on my experience, I would speculate that each banner likely represented 100 to 300 cavalry. Therefore, the number of cavalry is easier to estimate. The number of infantry and mercenaries is much harder to determine. If we look beyond the typical wars of Christendom, we can find examples of even larger battles. The Battle of Kulikovo on September 8, 1380, was a massive pitched battle between the Grand Duchy of Moscow and the Golden Horde Khanate. In the battle, the Muscovite army was organized into 6 regiments, including a patrol, a vanguard, and a right-wing regiment, a left-wing regiment, a main regiment, and an ambush regiment. Then, each regiment was divided into smaller tactical units, called banners, with 23 in the entire army. The earliest records of the troop numbers for this battle come from a detailed, epic-style chronicle. According to it, the Grand Duchy of Moscow's forces numbered between 150,000 and 200,000 men. Later, other epic accounts even suggested that the Muscovite side deployed 300,000 to 400,000 soldiers. But from the perspective of the smallest tactical unit, the banner, 23 banners, could not logically form such a massive army. The number of men in each banner was more likely in the hundreds. Later scholars generally dismissed the numbers from these epic and chronicle-style accounts. This is because the Grand Duchy of Moscow at the time lacked the capacity to support an army of over 100,000 men, and even in the 16th century, with better records, a larger population and greater productivity, Russia rarely deployed such a large force for a single battle, an army of 30,000 to 40,000. In 1881, military historian Myslavsky estimated the Muscovite forces at 100,000 to 150,000 men. Military historian Raisin, in a 1957 work, estimated the number was 50,000 to 60,000. Historian, archaeologist, and medieval warfare expert Kirpiknikov stated in his 1966 book that the 6 regiments on the Kulikovo battlefield could not have exceeded a maximum force of 36,000 men. At the Kulikovo Battlefield Museum, archaeologist Dvorokensky proposed in a 2014 report that the Muscovite army deployed 6,000 to 7,000 armored warriors and likely also mobilized other lightly equipped troops. Meanwhile, in the chronicle stories, the description of the Golden Horde's forces is even more vague and exaggerated. In one epic tale, the Muscovite forces reached an absurd 1.32 million, while the Golden Horde was described as innumerable and overwhelming. Clearly, such a record is purely an artistic embellishment and holds no basis in reality. But what is clear is that the Golden Horde's forces likely outnumbered Moscow's. If we synthesize the views of historians and estimate Moscow's forces at 30,000 to 50,000 men, then the Mongol forces were at least 1.5 to 2 times larger, numbering roughly 50,000 to 100,000. Therefore, the total number of combatants in this battle likely exceeded Tannenberg, reaching over 100,000. Additionally, in a 1223 battle, a Rus-Cuman coalition fought against the Mongols. The coalition deployed 30,000 to 80,000 men, while the Mongols fielded Tetumans, totaling 20,000 to 23,000 soldiers. The combined forces in this battle may have also reached 100,000. From the 6th to the 12th century, the Byzantine Empire was a leader in Europe in terms of economy, military, territory, and population. Consequently, many large-scale battles involved the Byzantines. A prime example is from 613, when Heraclius led the Byzantine army against the Persian Sasanian Empire in the Battle of Antioch. The Byzantine forces numbered around 68,000, while the Sasanians had about 40,000. Another example is from 960, when Phocas, the White Death of the Saracens, led 50,000 men in an amphibious invasion of Crete. Then in 970, John I led 40,000 Byzantine troops to engage the 65,000-strong army of the Grand Prince of Rus. Many other battles involving the Byzantine Empire were also very large, often with more than 50,000 total combatants. Due to statistical errors, it's difficult to determine the precise number of forces in these battles. Therefore, deciding which battle was truly the largest in medieval Europe is a matter of opinion. Besides those mentioned, there were likely other medieval European battles of a comparable scale. Most of them hovered between 50,000 and 100,000 total combatants. It's rare to find any that exceeded this range. In most other major battles, the combined forces were under 50,000. For example, at the famous Battle of Crécy during the 100 Years' War, England, the size of any army, is ultimately limited by regional constraints and productivity levels, so it cannot expand indefinitely. The accounts of great battles involving hundreds of thousands or millions of men are, in most cases, merely the result of artistic exaggeration. Battles of the pre-gunpowder era were limited by command structures, mobilization capabilities, and the efficiency of assembly, as well as terrain, logistics, and other constraints, making it difficult to support massive armies. A battle with 100,000 total combatants can be considered a major war in any pre-gunpowder era. Even in the East, with its larger populations and territories, massive armies were often not concentrated in a single location for one battle. They often advanced on multiple fronts, with the overall conflict consisting of several closely related battles. Once you achieve victory in this coming war, I will analyze it for you in greater detail. As we've seen from many examples, victories where the few defeat the many are quite common. This may be because in the less organized armies of the Middle Ages, a smaller, elite force was often easier to command. Moreover, pre-gunpowder warfare isn't just a numbers game. Morale and fighting spirit have an enormous impact on the outcome. Sometimes, the collapse of one flank can trigger a total rout of the entire army. Therefore, the tactic of using a small, elite force to strike the enemy's core was consistently effective in medieval warfare. Finally, I believe a shrewd commander should focus on the causes and consequences of a battle and the factors that influence tactical decisions and information on troop composition. Although army size is an important factor, if you fixate too much on numbers alone, it is difficult to truly understand the real significance of these battles. Well then, I hope this information and advice has been helpful to you. May you become a great monarch and commander. Until next time.